Sufism is to die gradually to oneself. It means to glide out of one's own mold like a snake peeling off its skin. Sufism may be regarded as a process of change or a profound conversion through the effect of the divine presence. This effect, according to Sufism, is brought out through initiation by a teacher. Sufis use stories as a learning aid. Let us see what Sufi Idris Shah has to say about stories as a teacher.
There is no nation, no community without its stories. Children are brought up on fairy tales. Cults and religions depend upon them for moral instruction. They are used for entertainment and for training. Those who know about the higher level of being represented by stories can learn something from them, but very little. Those who can experience this level can teach the use of stories. An ancient yet still irreplaceable method of arranging and transmitting a knowledge which cannot be put in any other way. In this sense, such stories may be regarded as part of a curriculum, and as valid a representation of fact as, for instance, any mathematical formula or scientific textbook. But what would be called in contemporary speech the security aspect of stories is almost complete in the case of the genre which we call teaching stories because of another factor. This is why we must use stories in a manner which will enable us to harvest their value for us in a given situation. This is the stage at which we can familiarize ourselves with the story and regard it as a consistent and productive parallel or allegory of certain states of mind. Its symbols are the characters in the story. The way in which they move conveys to the mind the way in which the human mind can work. We can put ourselves into a relationship with the higher faculties possible to the mind by working on a lower level, the level of visualization. Especially, we are here to say that the most ancient and most important knowledge available to man is in part contained in these documents, and that this form, however primitive or old-fashioned it may seem, is in fact almost the only form in which certain teachings can be captured, preserved, and transmitted.
One of the examples given in this chapter is the story of dividing camels. Let us hear this story.
There was once a Sufi who wanted to make sure that after his death, his disciples would find the right teacher to continue to lead them on the way. He therefore, after the obligatory bequests laid down by law, left his disciples 17 camels with this order: you will divide the camels among the three of you in the following proportions. The oldest shall have half, the middle in age 1/3, and the youngest shall have 1/9. As soon as he was dead and the will was read, the disciples were at first amazed at such an inefficient disposition of their master's assets. Some said, "Let us own the camels communally." Others sought advice and then said, "We have been told to make the nearest possible division." Others were told by a judge to sell the camels and divide the money. And yet others held that the will was null and void because its provisions could not be executed. Then they fell to thinking that there might be some hidden wisdom in the master's bequest. So they made inquiries as to who could solve this insolvable problem. Everyone they tried failed, until they arrived at the door of the son-in-law of the Prophet, Hazrat Ali. He said, "This is your solution. I will add 1 camel to the number. Out of the 18 camels, you will give half, that is 9 camels, to the oldest disciple. The second shall have a third of the total, which is 6 camels. The last disciple may have 1/9, which is 2 camels. That makes 17. 1, my camel, is left over to be returned to me." This is how the disciples found the teacher for them.